The history and use of the term moth hour. I had never heard or read the term moth hour before, but I'm reading the American author Jan Caron's book, In the Company of Others, and she uses it several times. The book is set in Ireland, and there are entries from an old diary scattered throughout the story. Here is one excerpt. I remember how she slit the throat of a hedgehog which she commanded me to capture and bring to her in a sack. The creature was rolling in fat, for the spring and summer had been especially wet and lush, and I had often seen him outside his burrow at the moth hour surveying the land. I searched and found that William Butler Yeats, 1865 to 1939, used the phrase in his poem The Ballad of Father Gilligan. Here are the first two stanzas. The old priest, Peter Gilligan, was weary night and day, for half his flock were in their beds, or under green sods lay. Once, while he nodded on a chair at the moth hour of eve, another poor man sent for him, and he began to grieve. I can see from this engram that the height of the use of the term may have coincided with the publication of Yeats' poem. But would he have coined it, or was it in general use and he borrowed it? I also noticed that there is a moth radio hour, sometimes known as the moth hour, which is all about the art and craft of storytelling. See, why the moth, but it's not really related to the term I'm interested in. So, after all this, I presume that moth hour is an Irish and maybe British expression. Did Yeats coin it? Is it well known and is it still used? Do any of you Americans use it? I also presume it means the hours around dusk, when the moths come out. Is that so?
Once upon a time in poor rural Ireland there were no such things as clocks. There were few ways to tell the passage of time except for a handful of naturally occurring events. One of those events, occurring nightly at dusk as the last bits of sun slipped away, and each morning as the first rays of light broke out over the hills, the skies of the Irish countryside filled with hundreds if not thousands of moths. The moth hour, while not a literal, formal unit of time, both makes reference to the time around dusk and dawn where moths filled the skies, and to those who would measure their days with nature, not numbers.
The American poet Robert Penn Warren wrote the poem I Heard a Voice at Moth Hour, which uses the term to describe dusk. He also uses dewfall to mean early morning.
OED gives the first usage of moth hour as by Yeats in Countess Kathleen, published 1892, but evidently composed 1890 as that's the date they give. Yeats may of course have borrowed it from hearing it used by country folk, but OED also indicates a connection with moth time, a coinage found in the poetry of John Keats. 1820 Keats' Lamia I, in Lamia and other poems 16, now on the moth time of that evening dim / he would return that way. The possibility exists that Yeats got it from Keats.
If you want to support the channel, please consider liking.